Today, I'm going to go through the smartest way to make £10,000 a month in property in 2025. Let's be honest, 10k a month is the dream income for most property investors, but there's a smarter way to get there than just buying these properties. By the end of this video, you'll understand why investing directly into property might not be the quickest route and how you can get there faster with less risk and, most importantly, way less capital. So depending on when you watch this video, whether it's this year, next year or year after, I believe that this video will remain as relevant as it is today. The number one reason why buying properties isn't the smartest way to get to 10k a month as soon as possible is simply because it requires a lot of capital. It's not financially viable for most of us out there. To give you my example, at this time of writing, I own a portfolio of 20 properties, and that portfolio has cost me well over £500,000 of my own cash to be able to invest and buy those properties. Let's just say, hypothetically speaking, after doing a BRR, which is buy, refurb, rent and refinance, after refinancing property, on average I'm living in around £15,000 per property. If you times that £15,000 by 20, that's £300,000 that as a minimum was required to build that portfolio. Most of us do not have £300,000 lying around. And just to give you a breakdown of what it really takes to invest in the property, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, even though the average UK house price is close to £200,000, let's just say that we're going to purchase up north, invest a property up north because it's cheaper, it's worth £100,000. So if we've got a £100,000 property, okay, you're naturally not going to buy it in cash, most people. You're going to put down a 25% deposit. That 25% deposit is naturally going to be £25,000. Then you've got your 5% stamp duty, so that's going to be £5,000. And then there's other costs like your legals, which is, again, let's be conservative and say 1k. Then you got your broker fees, your surveyor fees, and so on. Let's just say £1,000 more. My writing is terrible. So if you add the £25,000 to £5,000, £1,000 and another £1,000, that means you need a minimum of £27,000 to buy a £100,000 property. Now imagine if your area properties are worth £200,000, £300,000, then you need a lot more. Bear in mind that this example does not need a refurb. In most cases, properties need refurbs to be able to make money from them, to be able to generate it into a cash flowing asset. So you need well over £25,000. So the point is, to get into property, to make it meaningful, you need at least £100,000 if you want to be buying multiple properties, because that's when it's worthwhile. Most people do not have that money.
We'll get back to the video in a few seconds, but 70% of you watching this video aren't subscribed to my channel. Please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button and buy more properties in the next few months. I'll be sharing everything so you can learn from my mistakes for free. Anyways, back to the video.
But let's just say, for argument's sake, that you do have the money, you have £500,000 and you want to invest in property. To be able to convert that £500,000 cash into all these assets, it's going to take time, and it's going to take a lot more time than you think. Generally speaking, to view properties, to put offers on them, you know, you're going to get rejected a couple of times, then you have to, you know, line up builders and so on. The whole process of finding, buying, refurbing and then refinance properties, generally speaking, takes anything from 6 to 9 months. One of my latest properties, for example, which I've made a video on, that took well over 9 months for me to do everything to get the money back into my account to be able to reinvest, right? And that's just one property. And the reality is, one property, two property, three property won't really change your life, because that's not going to be able to get you to 10k a month. And yes, you could argue that maybe if you do a service accommodation, or maybe if you do a HMO where you're able to produce more cash flow, but the principles remain the same. To be able to buy these HMOs or service accommodation, you need actually more money than a buy-to-let, because those properties need to be converted to a HMO. You need to put more en-suites in and so on. You need to, you know, put the furniture into a service accommodation, make it look better than a normal buy-to-let. So all these things will add up. As much as I love property, and that's why I continue to invest in properties and buy properties, but most people do not understand that property is a long-term game. If you're looking to replace your 9-to-5 income, if you're looking to quit your 9-to-5 job or change your situation now, buying properties will not be able to do that for you, even if you do have the money. And then there's the added element of risk when you're buying and investing in properties. I can give you my example. The second property that I purchased, yes, it was down to my own fault. I wasn't knowledgeable. I didn't get educated the right way. But I purchased this property which came with a damaged leak roof. I didn't know to check. It cost me £12,000 in the end. My latest property, one of my latest properties, that whole process took me a lot longer than 9 months to get it off the line because we had builder issues. We had issues with planning permission. Then we had issues with the electric meter. It stopped working, right? So we had to replace it, and that caused delays. One of the reasons why our project took so long is because right now we've got like a prepaid meter, and the prepaid meter at the time it stopped working. So basically we had no electricity. The point is that no matter how safe property is, and property is one of the safest investments, it still comes with the risk, because property is never smooth sailing. No matter how safe property is as an investment, and that's why again I continue to invest in property, it does have a lot of moving parts, and those moving parts are not in your control. When things happen and when things go wrong, it's going to cost you time and more money. So there is always an element when you're buying investment properties. Yes, the risk may not be as much as you're investing in Bitcoin or the stock market, but just understand there is going to be some risk. So if I haven't confused you already, you're probably now thinking that if I'm not buying these properties, or if I can't buy these properties, how the hell am I going to make money in property? And that's the thing. Before I started my investment journey, just like I'm sure a lot of you here, I thought the only way to make money is if you're buying or renting, if you're holding them, if you're flipping them. But there are a couple of strategies where you can make money without having to invest in these properties. I'm not going to go through all of them. The one that I'm going to talk about is the same property strategy that I use day in, day out. It's the same property strategy that I made over £1 million in just 1 year, and that's through deal sourcing. So you're obviously now going to say, oh, I'm biased. But yes, I'm biased, and I hate to be one of those guys, but just to show you that I'm not one of those people who just makes wild claims, I'm going to put up the accounts directly published on companies' accounts showing you that £1 million, and it's just to show you, number one, credibility, that I know what I'm talking about, and number two, that it's actually possible. There are people out there who are making thousands and millions doing this strategy, so it works. The reason why I like deal sourcing is because every friction that property has, we've talked about capital, we've talked about it takes a lot of time and it comes with risk. All those things that property comes with, right, like the negative things, deal sourcing doesn't. So when it comes to capital, you need minimal funds. You need around £2,000 to get set up and compliant as a deal sourcer. All of that costs £2,000. In terms of time, I genuinely believe that you could start making thousands of pounds within 6 to 12 months, as long as you apply yourself, you put the work in, you get educated. And then the risk, there's very little risk except for your time and your money that you invested, which is the £2,000. If you're now compared to property, it's the complete opposite. I could never get to like £1 million a year or even like £50,000 a month from my property investments unless I had a huge portfolio, and that huge portfolio would take me a lot of time and it would take a lot of capital. That's why deal sourcing is the smartest route to get to 10k a month in property, because it's low capital, it's fast money, and you can get there with minimal risk. And just to explain what deal sourcing is for those who don't know, deal sourcing is the process of finding profitable property deals for investors, and in exchange you get paid a fee for them. So you're like an investor's personal shopper. You go and ask them what they want, you go and find them a property, and they pay you. Because most investors who have money, either they've made money through their business or 9 to 5, they haven't got the time. You have the time, you put in the time, get the skills and knowledge, and you bridge that gap where you solve their problem. The investor over here has the money and wants to get into property. You don't really have that much money at the start, but you have the time, and then you help bridge that gap. The beauty of deal sourcing is that all the skills that you learn, finding properties, negotiating with vendors, building relationships with agents, all those skills that you learn in deal sourcing are transferable to your own property journey. So once you do eventually build up a cash bar through your deal sourcing business, you can then invest into property and build your own portfolio because you already have the skills and knowledge now. To show you what a typical source deal looks like, I'm going to put up this property which we secured for our investor for £112,000. We got paid £6,995 for this, and the best thing is we got paid close to £7,000 without having to buy the property, putting a single penny of our own. We managed the whole process, finding the property, analyzing the property, refurbing the property. It was a hands-free investment for the investor, and that's why we got paid £7,000. We got paid $6,995 for this property, again without putting any of our money. This property on the corner, we got paid £12,000 because this was a pretty profitable property or profitable investment for the investor, and as a result we were able to charge them more. Got paid £12,000 again for this property. This was a flip where the investor made £54,000 profit. So think about it, the investor made £54,000, we made £12,000, and we was only able to charge them £12,000 because we knew they would make significantly more money than us, right? So it's a win-win situation. They made £54,000, we made £12,000. It's a win-win. 4,995 for this property, 12,000 for this one. This one we charge 5,995. And again, I could keep going on. Generally speaking, we are sourcing 15 to 20 properties a month for our investors, and in return we get paid. Again, the beauty is we don't have to use any of our money. So if you look at it fundamentally, you are getting paid pure profit for exchanging your time for a service. And the reason why I think this is such a smart strategy is because think about it, if it only costs you around £2,000 to get set up or compliant, how much money, we've already talked about, it costs a minimum of £27,000 to get into property. A property investment for me, generally speaking, makes a 15 to 17% on average. That's what my portfolio averages, so 15 to 17%. And for that I have to put at least like 20, £30,000 or whatever. Deal sourcing, £2,000 setup, you could get that money back by one deal by charging £5,000, right? So if you look, one deal will pay back your entire investment. And this is what I mean by smartest. Like, yes, it's not just the smartest in terms of the quickest way to get £10,000. It's also the smartest because it requires very little capital. And this is where you have to be methodical. Like, if you want to make money, you have to start thinking about, okay, number one, what cards have I been dealt with? Like, how much money do I have right now with me? And if it's less than £25,000 or even £50,000 or even £100,000, because, you know, you have to buy multiple properties, then you have to think, okay, what do I have that I can offer in value in return to be able to get paid? And this is where deal sourcing comes in, because how I see it is that when it's property investing or any investing in general, you get paid or you make money by, number one, the amount of capital you put in, the time horizon you invest for. The longer you invest for, obviously the more returns, and of course the return you're gonna get on that investment. So as a result, capital and how much return you're going to get, they're not really in your control, right? Whereas with deal sourcing, you get paid in how much value you bring, how much skills you have, and how much time you put towards it. These three things are really in your control because you can develop skills, you can put in the time, and you can also bring value by finding great property deals. All of the things to become a deal sourcer can be learned again as long as you're willing to put the work in. So we talked about deal sourcing as it being less capital intensive. It's pretty fat money compared to property investing, because property investing is slow money. It takes time to accumulate wealth. Let's talk about risk now. Yes, property is less risky than other investments, but it does come with its own set of challenges. Repairs, maintenance, you have to keep on top of the property in order for it to look fresh, right? Then there's potential tenant problems that you can have with, right? Or you could have potential problems in the fact that when you go to refinance, you might not get the valuation that you expected, right? Your budget could go over, your builder could run off. There's so many moving parts, whereas ultimately all of the baggage that property comes with, it doesn't come with deal sourcing, because you are paid for your service. You get paid upfront for the service you provide, and you don't get paid on the performance of the property. And this is important to remember, because as long as you're finding good profitable property deals for an investor, once you've sold the property onto an investor, you can move on to the next one pretty quickly because your responsibility is done, right? And that's how you're able to scale a lot quicker, because you can keep moving on to the next one a lot quicker, right? Because you're not involved in the whole process of the refinance, because your money's not tied in the first place. And that's exactly why I believe deal sourcing is your smartest route to making 10k a month in property, because it requires very little capital to get started. You can start making money pretty quickly compared to property investing, which takes years and decades for the full returns, and of course comes with less risk. There are other property strategies out there like Airbnb and purchase option agreements, but if you look at how much money you make compared to the money you pocket, aka the profit, it's very minimal compared to deal sourcing, because in deal sourcing it's mostly your profit. If you enjoyed watching this video and you're like, okay, I want to learn more about deal sourcing, I'm going to put up a video called the fastest way to make 10k a month in property. Go through the step-by-step in deal sourcing, what it requires, how to get started, and so on. Go watch that video, and I'll see you soon.